What is up, football fans? This is Danny Austin. I'm here at the live from the 55 studios, which I got right this time. Apparently, the last couple times that I've done this intro, I've said live at the 155, which is not the name of the podcast. I have a friend who has a podcast that also has the name 155 in it, and I think that's where the confusion comes from. So that is my excuse. And you might say, well, Danny, like the first thing that you need to get when you have a podcast is you got to get the name right. And to that, I would say I'm talking about a league that doesn't have stats available online. So, we're making it up as we go here. Live from the 55. I got it right. We're making progress, getting better day by day. And yeah, my goal going forward is to get the name of my podcast right. We had a really fun show today. Obviously, the Stamps are playing the Riders on Saturday. Our Thursday morning shows are a little bit more Calgary focused than our Monday morning shows where we look around the league. We're certainly going to talk about the rest of the CFL as well. But, Stamps, Riders at home, that's a big one. And it's a fun one. And that is sort of going to be our main focus. We'll be finishing off with Britton, who does a killer job reporting on the Riders for CJME in Regina. He's just going to come on, tell us what we need to know about the Riders, who I will be perfectly honest with you, I find to be a deeply confusing team, but I could say the exact same thing about the Stampeders. To be honest, I could say that about pretty much every team other than probably the Bombers and the Lions at this point, and maybe a little bit the Argos, who I think look pretty good. But, he's going to tell us everything that he can about the Riders, and really excited for that. Prior to that, we've got Alex Singleton. I am so hyped. Singleton, everyone in Calgary is going to know, is obviously playing with the Denver Broncos. These days has been in the NFL. This is probably year 5, a couple years with the Eagles, in Philly, and now with the Broncos. But, we got to start in professional football here in Calgary, playing for the Stampeders, most outstanding defensive player for the entire league in 2017. Just honestly one of my favorite people, and such a good guy. And, wrote him, said, hey, man, any chance you can hop on? And he did. And we've already recorded that. So that's why I'm sort of speaking in the past tense. But Alex is, honestly, he's just such an advocate for the CFL and for Calgary and for the Stampeders. And, I still think that he is part of this community. So just honestly thrilled to have him. And yeah, that's sort of our lineup of guests. And we're going to get to the Riders. But while I do my intro here, I did want to start a little bit with just a conversation I had with the Stamps VP of Business Operations, Jay McNeil. There was a ton of focus, in my opinion, too much focus on attendance for the season opener when the Stamps hosted the BC Lions on a Thursday night, and less than 18,000 people showed up. Honestly, fine, talk about what you want. If that's where we want to draw our attention. But, bugged me a little bit because I saw a bunch of outlets that, to be honest, I don't think have done a Stampeder story in a year, and they decided to jump on the negative story. Think that those stories were lacking a lot of context. The fact is, it was the earliest game the Stampeders have ever played in the year. It was a Thursday night. It was against the Lions, who are not a big draw. There were just a ton of factors going against it. And yeah, they didn't draw great. But Jay was telling me that, it looks like the game is trending towards over 25,000. Part of that is the Riders. Yeah, the opponent matters. Part of that is it being a Saturday afternoon. Yeah, the date and time matter. But that's more than 7,000 more people in the stands than we saw in the season opener. And I think that that's significant. I think that is worth celebrating. And if people want to say, oh, well, they used to get more 10 years ago, well, good for you guys. It's not 10 years ago. This is a team that is working to sort of rebuild the fan base. I do think that they struggled to bounce back from COVID a fair bit. And I think that I've said this before on this podcast, but I think there's just been a ton of progress in terms of the fan experience, and it's not perfect. And there's nothing we can do right now about the fact that McMahon Stadium is old. But I do think that, try to drop by Stamps House if you can. I do think that everything happening in the Gridiron Gardens, the fact that it is FanFest, which was sort of delayed from late May because of the forest fire smoke. Look, there's a lot going on in this game. I think it's going to be a great time. I think the tailgate's going to be fun. And the reality is, as Jay said, what the Stampeders have been asking for years is Saturday afternoon games in the summer. I think it's perfect. It's what the league should be giving, every market realistically, but Calgary in particular. And I think that it makes a difference. So I honestly, I'm pretty hyped about that. And I don't know. I think it matters. And I think that if there are other outlets that are only going to celebrate the negative, I want to make sure that I celebrate the positive a little bit. And I cover this team and I love this team and I'm really happy to be doing it. So yeah, good on everyone. I do hope we see over 25,000. Hey, I'd love to see over 30,000. I don't think it's going to happen, but 25 to start and 25 is a lot more than 18. So, good on everyone who is coming out, good on everyone who's responsible for selling those tickets. And I hope we have a really fun time. And, I wish I could tailgate, but instead I will be in Stamps House eating the food that they give me for free. As for the game itself, look, it's the Riders and the guys. I honestly don't know. It's why I'm excited to have Britton coming on. Week 1, the Riders beat the Elks 17-13, and I thought that was a pretty nice win. Then the Elks go out and get shut out 22-0 by the Lions in week 2, and suddenly you're looking at that week 1 Riders win and thinking, that was like a little bit tighter than it maybe should have been. But then conversely, you look at the Riders. They lost to the Bombers week 2, 45-27. That looks pretty bad on paper. But if you actually sort of break the game down, the reality is like that game was, I wrote it down here, 31-24 coming out of the third quarter. It was a tight game. Janarian Grant had a big touchdown return and that kind of broke the Riders. But that game wasn't as bad as it looked. So suddenly you're trying to break down this Riders team. How good are they? They beat arguably the worst team in the league in week 1. They lost definitely the best team in the league in week 2. I don't know. Like, what kind of conclusion do you want to draw from that? I do think that that's why this week's slate of games, and particularly, Calgary and Saskatchewan, I think we're going to learn a lot because the reality is I don't think that we know everything we want to know about the Stampeders either. I think we saw big progress from week 1 to week 2, but at the same time, I don't think the Red Blacks are much of an opponent as currently constructed, and they will get better when Jeremiah Mazzoli is back, but he wasn't back. So what are you going to do? I mean, what are these Stampeders? What are these Riders? I think we're going to have a better idea. And if you're the Stampeders, I think you're sort of looking at this game and saying, all right, well, we got the Bombers coming in next week. So I don't know that I'm going to call a mid to late June game in the CFL actually must win. I think we use that term way too often, but if you're the Stampeders and you lose this one, you're at 1-2. If you lose to the Riders, I have a hard time seeing you beat the Bombers. So you come back from a bye week and you lose to the Bombers and you're 1-3. At that point, I think you have to be real that it's going to be pretty hard to even consider catching first place. So this is a big, big game. I think the Stamps need to beat the Riders. I think the Stamps, need to show that they can beat, their Western Conference rivals. And I'm fascinated because I quietly think the Riders are better than that loss to Winnipeg. And I can't sit here and dismiss everything that happened with the Stampeders in week 1. Not say, well, the Riders were probably better than the result that they got in week 1. So anyways, it's a fascinating game. It's exciting. We're going to have a big crowd. There's just a ton to talk about, ton to examine. And yeah, that's kind of that. So anyways, let's get to Alex Singleton here. All right. Well, yeah, joining me, man. Are you down in Denver? It is Alex Singleton. Yeah. Is this the new house?
This is the new house. This is the library room. It's got nothing in it.
Man, you got to get some books.
I know. I just started reading this year, so it's it's coming.
Yeah. What have you read? What have you read?
A bunch of what are they? These Jack Carr books. They're super good. Highly recommend.
That's wicked. So you do have books in your library.
Yeah, I got a couple. They're here.
That's hilarious. I got to say, like, the number of guys, like, because I was at Stamps practice today. Brent Monson says hi. Micah always says hi. I don't know if you actually know Micah.
Yeah, I run in the league. It's the smallest league. I mean, not the smallest league ever, but like, it's such a close knit league. Everybody, so I love it. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's amazing. Can you in touch with anyone?
Yeah, I talk to Monson all the time. I'm so close with Therm, obviously. Renee, Wiggs, all those guys. Bo. I talk to Bo. Give him a hard time all the time.
Yeah, so it's not like I was trying to figure it out because Mike Rose would have been on the 2018 team. Obviously, Renee.
Yeah.
Like there's more guys than you think because there's like Charlie Power.
Yeah, Charlie Power. Yeah, I talk to Charlie all the time. If you name, I still talk to Dave all the time. I stay in touch. I keep the Calgary circle close.
That's nice. Yeah, and there's a couple of them who have come back too, right? Because Vauders is back. So have you? I'm not going to ask. I don't want any news because I don't want to. But have you talked to Bo at all this week?
No, I haven't.
No,
I've stopped bugging him about his reports because you never know if you're going to get the truth. So I'll just wait to see who plays, in the game.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I also like don't want to break any news here. It's like not the point of the podcast. But you were in camp last week too, right? Like how
Yeah,
does it how
we were
many
in like
camps do you guys
OT.
have?
We have so many camps, but we at least, Sean, which is super cool. He canceled, like, we have a mandatory vet mini camp that's like before the draft, so he canceled that. We just did the 10 OTA practices, which was cool. A lot of teams do extra, like a phase 2. We didn't do that. And then there's a 3-day mini camp, which is it's just an extended OTA, so it wasn't too bad.
Yeah. It's very different from the CFL. I
Very
gotta say.
different, yeah. And now we get our 5-week break before the season, but they get a 6.5-month break, so it's kind of nice.
Yeah, there's a difference there. Is that 5.5 weeks though? How much of that is just working out?
The whole thing. I mean, I've done it here, but I got a bachelor party I'm going to this weekend. I got a wedding the next weekend, and then it's like full football. But yeah, I got a couple weekends before.
I mean, that's not bad though. It's June. I
No,
feel like you guys deserve a break.
no, and it's the worst though because I'm still trying to come to Stampede. I'm still trying to come to a game since COVID. I haven't been back. But with all the weddings, with our practice schedule, with Calgary having no home games that aren't like Thursday nights, which isn't beneficial when we only work Monday to Thursdays.
Yeah, no kidding.
And then, they're off. They're on the road until late July.
Completely. Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, well, guess I'll come back next year.
Next year. Yeah, it's the weirdest season. I mean, whatever. They have over 25,000 people coming out, so it's better. I don't know if you heard, but the first game against BC was not good. But like, don't do a Thursday night during the school year.
Yeah, you can't.
Like, just don't do it.
Yeah, I mean, and if it was a Saturday night, I would have been there. It'd have been way more fun.
Yeah, would have been wicked. So you're not making it to Stampede this year?
No, sadly, it's hard.
Too bad. Although I gotta say, like being in Denver, like, did you end up getting to a finals game? You and I had texted a little bit back and forth about you potentially.
I didn't go to a finals game. I went to a Western. I went to every other round. The tickets got. It was such a you already knew they were gonna win kind of series. So like game 1, I was gonna go to, and that was sold out pretty quick. I mean, I'm a basketball fan, but I'm not spending a couple grand basketball fan.
Yeah.
So I was just like, I can do more fun things.
Crazy too with the NBA finals, because when the Raptors were in it in 2019, I went home, but like even flights, just because everyone from that city goes home for the NBA finals.
Yeah,
right? So
and you're guaranteed to have like 3. They had 3 home games, so it's kind of you can come in and like actually be part of the city.
Are you able to, like, as a professional football player, like as an NFL guy, are you able to be out like enjoying it?
Well, we didn't. My whole thing is I would never go to like another sports team's parade or anything. Like,
no.
That'd be weird. I feel like it's just like I want to win one. I know. Obviously, winning a Grey Cup, like I know how fun it is to celebrate winning, but like I'm not going to celebrate some other grown man winning a sport. I think it's weird until I'm done playing and have kids or something. Like I'm not going, but. I think, going out and like watching the games and enjoying the games, I think we do that anyway. So it didn't really matter whether it was the Nuggets or anything. I just think it makes the city more excited for all sports when it's like your hometown team.
Completely. Well, it's crazy too, because the Avs won the cup last year. So like all of a sudden Denver's like Boston in the late 2000s, where kind of like on you guys on the Rockies to win.
Everyone. Yeah. We've heard it a lot, so
have you?
We just have high expectations, so we better figure it out.
Yeah, and I guess I'm to do the formal like sports reporting thing. Like you guys presumably are feeling like it's a bounce back year, and you guys can.
Yeah, I think last year, the way our defense plays, the way the offense will play, the huge moves we made in the offseason, obviously bringing Sean in that kind of speaks for itself. So. I'm excited. I can't wait. I want these 5 weeks to like hurry up. I want the summer to be over. It's like we want to get back into it. So I'm excited for that.
Is it an entirely new like playbook for you? Because I feel like at one point I was talking to you and you're like, "Yep, I've had a new playbook every year for the last
every year."
6 years.
No, luckily, Vance was here like 2017, 2018, I believe. He was head coach maybe 2019. But so the defense was kind of like not built then, but then Vic Fangio came, and then obviously Coach E last year, and so they've kind of all like molded, because the defense has always been really good here. So it wasn't like just rebuilding defenses every single time. They've kind of like molded all together, And we kept on our DB coach and our D line coach, who were able this offseason to like work with Vance and the other coaches and kind of make the verbiage the same that we've had, because it's still a 3-4 defense. So
Yeah.
they've kind of like worked back and forth in it. So it's like a mesh between the two. But so it wasn't like we were picking up a whole new defense, which is nice.
Yeah,
It'd be
that
miserable.
just seems like so much work, to be
Oh,
honest. Like,
it's stuff. Well, because everyone calls like, there'll be one little route concept. One coach will call it this, the other coach calls it that, and they get furious if you like use some other coach's terminology, and you're just like, dude, this is how I've known it for this long, and so it's a big back and forth. But now we're luckily found a good middle ground, so it's good.
that's hilarious. Yeah, I mean, there are a million reasons why I'm not a professional athlete, but like, like I'm not doing that either. Forget the physical side. I'm just not learning up.
Not learning it. Yeah, a lot of people think it's just a bunch of dummies running around, but sadly we're not.
I know. It's the thing, having covered the CFL for 7 years now. It's like you come to respect the stereotype of the dumb jock football player. It's like it's not accurate.
It's not.
I've got one or two pretty dumb guys.
Some guys can't do that.
Yeah, I'm not going to name them, but and then you got the family in town.
Family's in town. They came to see the house. They're
Is it the first time?
Yeah, their first time here. We moved in May 1st, so it's fresh. It's slowly coming together. Yeah, and they're You want to talk about the people that have watched every CFL game this year?
Have they?
They haven't missed a game yet.
Man, that's amazing.
They like call me and they're like, "Hey, what do you think about Jake?" I'm like, "What? What do you mean?" They're like, "This game's on right now. Can you just?" And I'm like, "Oh my god, relax."
Yeah, I'm literally like trying to learn a new playbook, guys.
They're
still hardcore stamps though. Like that's
hardcore stamps. Yeah. But they'll watch. I mean, obviously they watch the Ticats, and I think they think it's cool that because now it's. I mean, it might as well be the Hamilton Stampeders and the Toronto
and the Toronto. It's insane.
It's like I talked to them because I was out this weekend, but they watched the Hamilton Toronto game and they were like, "Is anyone that's like relevant on either team not played for the Stampeders?"
No, it's crazy.
Or coached. Like,
no. Yeah, that's the other
crazy.
thing. Right?
And I mean, it makes sense why they're both going to be good teams, but it's interesting.
Last time I saw your mom was in 2018, right after the Grey Cup. And you guys had the whole parade, and I had gone to local to get a sandwich, and I was like Grey Cup beats the hell out of reporters, and so I was not drinking.
Yep.
And your mom just walked up to me and was like, "Just so you know, Alex is coming." And like I could hear like the fear in her voice, and like she could see that I needed to not be there. And then you guys walked in, and I just hung out with you guys for a while. But
I mean that's what happens.
I really appreciated. She could see that I needed to not drink and warned me that the whole team was coming.
And we did not drink.
No, you guys were fun. Yeah.
I had workouts too. I'll never forget that. I had workouts like 5 days after that.
No way.
Yeah, I flew to Cleveland with like a big suitcase and was like still hungover. I was like, well, let's make it to the NFL.
That's insane.
Let's give this.
And you couldn't have been the only one, right? Because out of that group, like Therm went NFL as well. Vauders also got NFL.
Yep. And me and Therm went a couple places together. So yeah, it was a grind.
Well, it's just funny. Like I'll go into places on Stephen Avenue, and they'll still just like have photos of like you guys with the Grey Cup.
I get people every like so often. Someone will send me like a picture of. I think like Home and Away has one. I think there's a couple other there's a couple other places, but they'll always be like, "Dude, you're still on the wall. Are you coming out here?" I'm like, "No, I can't." So I don't want to come in February.
Don't come in February.
I'm not coming in February and March. I'm just
the time for you to come is Stampede, obviously.
Yes, and that's why I think the CFL, even though they don't schedule many things correctly, I think we've all seen that this offseason to the max. But if they could, put a game maybe that week, I think there's so many people there now. I mean, why not?
I think that they try not to have the two things competing, but it's actually one of those ones where I think there's enough people who would want to go.
It's a 3-hour event. Don't play the game at 7:00 at night. But if you did I don't know, you start at 1:00 on Labor Day.
No kidding. Yeah.
You'll be with the rodeo, but the rodeo is already sold out. So come on.
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
We'll get people. We could do a whole thing. It'd be easy.
Would you bring up like the crew? If you can?
Everybody.
Yeah.
There's so many guys. The amount of people I've sold, one on Calgary, but then 2 on the Stampede, is I'd have like 50 people deep. It would be so fun.
That's amazing.
We wouldn't be able to walk straight. We'd have like bus around. But it's crazy. I wouldn't even have, I mean, I would have a place to stay, but it would be like so weird going to Calgary. And like the last time I was there, I still had an apartment there. So it was like,
Really? Eh?
old in town, had the apartment, it was whatever. And now it would just be
Yeah, just get a hotel or an
getting a
Airbnb.
hotel. Like, but
Yeah.
I'd get a hotel right on,
I'm
7.
sure, like, I don't know, one of the coaches must not have kids and would be fine to put you up.
Or we'll just kick the kids out for a
Yeah,
couple.
we'll just kick the kids out. Yeah.
I know
I'm sure Monson would be happy to have you.
Killam's kids are old enough to, they can
Yeah, that's true.
go on vacation. But
Yeah.
they're
Well,
all
because I mean, I guess Bo would have been the main like player with a house, but obviously,
yeah.
I don't know if he's.
We crash at Renee's house, but he's got too many little kids now.
Man, he's a firefighter.
I know. He'd probably be working. That
Yeah.
when he's not kicking, he's got to go to work.
It is still like I think it's cool and like good on him, like respect
yeah.
to him for doing, but like it remains like one of my favorite CFL things that just a guy in his late 30s could just become a firefighter and keep kicking field goals.
Just casually in the offseason too, like I'm gonna become a firefighter. All right. Like I remember when he's like, I was like, is Dave cool with it? He's like, yeah, he loves it. I'm like,
yeah. And he's still the best kicker in CFL history.
Yeah, and it's close to breaking some new record.
I don't know, man. Like, if he hasn't broken them all,
I mean,
like,
I'm sure every week there's like a new thing he's going to be.
Yeah, and there's guys who, like, in terms of just like the number of field goals he would have kicked as opposed to percentage. Like, there's CFL guys who in like the 80s and 90s, I feel like they were 55 years old and still kick.
Like forever. There was who was McCallum?
Yeah, and
wasn't he kicking?
Isn't it what's Pasaglia? Is that his name? What's that?
He was kicking in BC my first year, and the dude was late 40s.
Was he really?
Yeah, I was like, is this guy a coach? And someone's like, I know he's a kicker.
That's amazing. He must have had another job. There's no way you're devoting that much of your life to just kicking.
God, wouldn't that be so chill? Just make like 105, 110 and just be a kicker 6 months of the year.
Yeah, I mean, it goes a lot less far in Vancouver than it does in Calgary, but like, it's not a bad life.
No,
for 6 months of work.
I'm signing up for it.
Yeah. All right, man. I just wanted to check in. Good to have you, man. Thanks for coming on and say hi to Ashley and your mom for me.
Yes, I will. And they say hello. And
congratulations. She won a bunch of medals like 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah, just once again, we'll still never catch up. So I'm just gonna play sports for as long as I can because I'm never gonna catch up to her.
Yeah, I mean, she's a star.
Yeah,
there's no question about that. Yeah, your mom just posted on Twitter. I'm looking at it right now. There's at least 3 medals around her.
Yeah.
So it would have been the Special Olympics, Southern California.
Yeah.
Did you guys get swimming today? No.
Yeah, we just got back from the pool.
That's amazing.
Nothing better. There's storms coming in though. We get all these. Have you guys been getting storms up there?
Yeah, finally. Well, it was like the whole province was on fire like 3 weeks ago. Right?
Yeah. So we got that smoke too. We had to practice inside for like a week because of you guys.
Must be nice being able to practice inside. Eh?
Hold on. The Stamps practice inside all the time now.
They have moved inside. Yeah,
that is a bunch of. We used to have to, no matter what, be outside.
I know.
And God, we didn't lose a lot of games either, So they need
it's Mike O'Shea swears that the Bombers will never practice inside, and it works for them. So,
well, Mike's also crazy, in a good way, not a crazy way. I mean, I love Mike. Mike was he was the one that gave me my Defensive Player of the Year award.
Was it really?
Yeah,
that's unreal. Yeah. Like he was just the presenter.
Yeah,
which was wild. I mean, he clearly like Big Hill is still, I'd argue, still the best middle linebacker in the league right now. So the guy knows his linebackers. Yeah,
seriously. I still couldn't believe because he has like a full-on job outside of football too.
Does he? I don't know what he does, but
I think he's a CPA.
Jeez.
Or he's either that or a financial advisor. One or the other.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's smart and does a bunch of crazy.
Does he have a library though? Because that's pretty sick.
Have a library. I'm sure he does.
That's amazing. All right, well, buddy, thank you so much, man. Really, really appreciate it. All right, that was awesome. Thank you to Alex Singleton for joining us from Denver, from his new house, from his library where he started reading. All very exciting. Yeah. Before I go any further, I do want to quickly shout out our sponsor. Our guests are brought to you by Fraser and Fig. here in Marteloup, they do delicious elevated cheese and charcuterie. It's all made with fresh artisanal ingredients. I'm not even kidding you. You can just go in, grab a cheese and charcuterie box. Say you're going for a picnic. Let's say you're taking a girl on a date, or you're showing up and trying to surprise your parents, or I don't know who else you'd be trying to surprise, your grandparents. You're trying to surprise anybody. Honestly, what better way to do it with a charcuterie box? Everybody loves them. And Fraser and Fig, they've got 4 sizes. They suit every occasion. It's literally all boxes come with meat, cheese, dried fruit, fresh fruit, nuts, olives, pickles, and carrots. And honestly, their selections vary from month to month. I'm not kidding. These are unreal. I have grabbed one of these boxes and absolutely surprised a small dinner party that I was having. I wouldn't really call it a dinner party, but I surprised a group of people who were coming over to my place to play video games. It was nice. I had a charcuterie box. They were all pleasantly surprised. So thank you to Fraser and Fig. They presented Alex Singleton. They're going to also be presenting Britton Gray coming up. They are the best, and we super appreciate them. And yeah, again, thank you to Alex. I think everyone who is a Calgary football fan, but I hope, CFL fans in general, have a respect and appreciation for what Alex did. He was only up here 3 years, but won a Grey Cup, most outstanding defensive player. I know that those Stampeders teams are not loved by, other markets, but Alex, he never set a foot wrong. He embraced Calgary. I think that's one of the things that people loved about him. He very much was a member of our community while he was here. And I'm not kidding. You heard him talking about coming back up to Stampede, wanting to come to a Stampeders game, wanted to bring 50 of his friends up for Stampede. That's who Alex is. And he's been a huge advocate and supporter of our city for a really, really long time. And I don't know, I think we were lucky to have him up here. He's one of those great CFL stories. He grew up in California, but he embraced the Calgary lifestyle, the Canadian lifestyle, and the CFL game. And honestly, it's like when I told people at Stampeders practice today, oh yeah, I'm having Alex on the podcast, the number of people just like yelling, oh man, make sure you say hi for me. He's still loved by the guys on this team, both the coaching staff and a lot of the players. And I hope that at the end of his career, as he's told me a couple times, he still comes back up and spends one last season, at least here in Calgary. I think that fans would love that. I still see so many 49 Alex Singleton jerseys all around McMahon Stadium. And we appreciate him coming and joining us, giving us time. It's not many NFL guys right now who are jumping on a CFL podcast. So we hear it live from the 55. Got it right again, guys. I'm really making improvements. My producers gave me a thumbs up there. Thank you to Alex. Yeah, we got Britton Gray coming up here in a couple minutes, but before we do, might as well take a look a little bit around the league. Honestly, I don't know that you'd say that there have been a ton of marquee matchups through these first 2 weeks. Obviously, Saskatchewan and Winnipeg's a pretty big game, and Toronto and Hamilton. But I don't know. In terms of sort of what we know, it's been 2 weeks. We sort of know that the Lions and Bombers are the class of the West so far. That's not to say they will in week 10 or week 18, but through 2 weeks, they've been the best teams. And just having them square off, it's not great that it's a Thursday night. That's really too bad. And I don't need to belabor the point. I think all of us hate Thursday night games, but that's happening. And that's just fascinating to me because honestly, the Lions, you shut out anyone, even if it is the Elks. And I'm impressed, colorly impressed. And I, to be honest, thought that they looked really well prepared and pretty sharp against the Stampeders in week 1. They were the better team that week, flat out. There is not any question there. I thought they got in Jake Mayer's face. I do like that defensive line. I think like everybody, I'm just sort of, I'll watch Dominic Grimes anytime a ball is thrown his way. I think he's late. And then the Bombers are the Bombers. I honestly, someone said to me, we were talking about the Riders and Bombers game and how it had been so tight. And then it was like, oh, one big kick return kind of made the difference. And that's fine to say. But that's the thing about the Bombers is they have the players who can do that one big explosive play, whether that's on special teams, whether it's on offense, whether it's on defense. And, Kenny Lawler should be back pretty soon here. Only going to make them better. So the Bombers scare me. To be honest, they scare me more than they scared me last year. And I'm quietly kind of rooting for these Lions. I think a lot of us, with Nathan Rourke leaving, with Brian Burnham retiring, I'm guilty of this. I absolutely wrote them off. I should put James Butler in there too. I did not think that they were going to be in the mix, and I love seeing them come out and have that swagger and really kind of lay a beating on 2 teams in their first 2 weeks. So I think it's one of those things. I suspect that the Bombers are going to win this one. I just think that they're too good, too experienced, too sharp right now to be dropping a game in week 3 when other teams still have to continue improving to get to their sort of A level. I think the Bombers are already there, but it might be really good for the league if the Lions won. Suddenly, the Bombers are a little bit vulnerable. I don't mind that from a narrative perspective, and I am a writer, so I love narrative. I would definitely pick the Bombers there, but no issue with people who want to tell me the Lions are in the fight too. Montreal Hamilton, this one is sort of the one that does lack. Well, I'll be honest with you. On Sunday, Toronto Edmonton. That feels like it's going to be the worst game of the weekend. I just think, I don't know the Toronto. We need to be, although I joked about it on Twitter, but I don't know that we need to be writing them in as playing in the Grey Cup already. But I definitely thought that Chad Kelly looked really good in the first half there. And to be honest, I just think the Elks look terrible. They look like they're shambles, and I hope that they get it together. I'm super bummed that the Elks have been as bad as they have been for the last couple of years. I think that we need a strong Edmonton market for the CFL. I think it makes Labor Day more fun. I think it makes the CFL more fun. There's such a history there, and I love seeing Commonwealth full. And saw a lot of games where there weren't many people there last season. So, that one, unfortunately, I think they're going to get slaughtered by the Argos. Definitely not a game that I'm going to advise that my friends sort of go out of their way to cancel all their Sunday night dinner plans to watch. But I don't know, Montreal Hamilton, this one is just tough. I covered Bo Levi Mitchell. We've got his jersey. I don't know. Podcast listeners can't watch, but we've now added 2 scarves that are hanging off hockey sticks to our set. Our set, we got a James Wilder Jr. hat above a Andrew Harris bobblehead where he's missing an arm. We're making real progress with our set here, but we do have the Bo Levi Mitchell jersey there. Watching him go down with a groin injury, it broke my heart a little bit. If I'm being honest with you, he's a guy I covered for a long time who I really respect, and I want Bo to have that last chance to sort of solidify his legacy and make people who maybe missed the sort of prime 2014 to 2018 Bo years. I was kind of rooting for him to remind them of what he was capable of and who he was as a player. And, I don't know what happened with his groin. All I know is that he's not playing this week, but that didn't look good. And groin injuries make me really nervous. A guy named Javian Elliott, who was also actually on the Ticats, but was with the Stampeders last year, had a groin injury that just kept him out and out and out. And I think they can be unpredictable in terms of how they heal and how fast they heal. But look, I think this league is better with Bo in it. And I think that this Hamilton team, especially when, that city is hosting the Grey Cup, I wanted them to be competitive this year. And I wanted Bo to, give the Argos a run for their money, make that rivalry, feel the way it did, years ago. And I was just excited for it. So it sucked. And Montreal, I honestly don't have that much to say about right now. I haven't seen a ton of them. I'm hoping that Cody Fajardo is what he was a couple years ago. I love the Montreal market. It is one of the ones that, as you might imagine, I'm very disappointed that I don't get to travel to this year, but I don't really have them as a contender, even for a playoff spot. You can look at them potentially for third, but I'm not that confident in that. I still think that there are more good Western teams than there are Eastern teams. So that one is not one that I super care about. No, I shouldn't say that I don't care. That's not true. I do care. I care tremendously. We're doing a CFL podcast here. What am I talking about? I don't care. It's just not. Look, the 2 Western Conference games are the ones that matter, and that I'm excited about. You got the Lions and the Bombers, and then you got Saskatchewan and Calgary. So I don't know. I've talked a little bit about Calgary today, but we now have Britton Gray out of Saskatchewan, out of Regina. He is going to talk to us. This is brought to you again by Fraser and Fig. Delicious elevated cheese and charcuterie made with fresh artisanal provisions for on-demand grazing for pickup or delivery. We will talk more about them when we're done. But for now, I am going to add Britton. Britton, buddy, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I don't have my headphones on, so you're actually you're ahead of me here. This is just good podcast hosting. I'm learning as I go.
That's early in the season. You'll figure it out mid-season.
It's only week 3, man.
Exactly.
The season doesn't start till Labor Day. So tell me, man, how are you enjoying it? Football's back. We're a couple weeks into the season. I think that the Riders are absolutely fascinating, to be honest. So yeah, how is life in Riderville?
I mean, great. The sun's been shining, only a little bit of wind, not too much. Can't argue with that in Saskatchewan, especially. And it's fun to get back to it. Though this last offseason did have Connor Bedard to kind of keep us all intrigued in Regina this year. But CFL season's always special out in Saskatchewan.
Can I ask, guys? I haven't actually really talked to either you or Jamie or anyone, but did it take over the town a little bit, that sort of Bedard fever this winter?
Absolutely. Especially after the World Juniors, when he had that great performance he did. And you could just feel it, excitement in the air. They were starting to sell out a lot. And I think people finally realized how special he was. And this is the last chance to really get a chance to watch him without paying those NHL prices.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, I think that when they came to Calgary, I believe they sold out the Saddledome. I mean, so
yeah,
that was after, and he always drew big crowds here, but not sellouts. So I do think that World Juniors, I think it's when people realized that this is a generational talent.
I think he's officially been adopted as one of Regina's own. I think we're going to claim him here. He's from Regina. He spent enough time here.
Yeah, I talked to someone at one point because there was the whole should they trade him, and someone was like, no, there's value in keeping a guy like this associated not only with your organization but with the city of Regina, right? So I'm sure people are very happy. To be honest, it would have been crazy to trade him. In the moment, you could make the arguments, but I just don't think it was bad to have a guy like that in your organization for an extra couple months.
Absolutely not. It brought fans in, and you're always going to have that picked first overall from the Regina Pats, Connor Bedard. And I think that's something they really valued over there. And it kind of helps build the prestige of a team like that when you have such a high caliber player come through the system.
Completely. So, honestly, football fans who are listening to this are going to be like, great, they're talking hockey. So I'm going to shift it in a hurry. We try to keep this very football focused. What is and this is a vague question, and I totally recognize this, but it did feel last year like the vibes were off in around the Riders, and it by the end it almost felt like everyone just needed the season to be over, take a breath, get a fresh start. And I want to ask what the two games they've already played, but it does feel like the air is a little bit more clear. It feels calmer. It feels like there's less tension around the team.
Even during training camp, I got that feeling. And so I started to ask some of the players if it felt different this year, if something did feel different. And they all agreed, yeah, there's a different feeling in the locker room. I think Trevor Harris brings that kind of veteran professionalism that he's kind of known for, kind of a really a guiding force for a young team when they're going through the ups and downs, which when you look back at last year, it felt like there was some sort of internal conflict. It felt like the guys weren't getting along. And Craig Dickinson even admitted this year the guys are getting along better. It's a more of a mature room. And I think we just saw it all kind of slip over out onto the field and the product. And I think that's eventually what caused last year's team to completely crumble when things started to go bad, to lose all those games at the end of the season. It just felt like something went rotten. And the more we talk to guys who were here last year, the more it's becoming apparent that was indeed the case.
Did any of them, I'm sure that they haven't identified it, because it was one of those weird things. That Riders team was better on paper than it ever was on the field, but it was from an outsider. And I'm not celebrating this. That's not, but it felt like it was one thing after another last year. And was it just ultimately sometimes something gets a little rotten in the locker room, or something just stuff goes wrong and it's hard to recover from it?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was just personalities maybe weren't meshing. Whose fault was it? With the offensive line got a lot of slack for the 77 sacks, but they would often point out it's not just the O-line. There's other people who that go into pass protection, and we've kind of seen it with Cody Fajardo already this season, right? Montreal gave up 6 sacks. That should be a better offensive line than what he was dealing with the Riders, but the results were kind of the same. The Riders with Trevor Harris, they've given up less sacks through these first 2 games. And so it felt like maybe there was kind of butting heads about whose fault it was. Maybe the voice wasn't there, because we know how Craig Dickinson is, right? A kind of go-lucky guy, lets the guys kind of do their own thing. And he doesn't really strike me as an authoritative voice. Now, maybe he comes across as that, what we don't see, but he seems like let the players be themselves, let them kind of figure it out. And that's why I really liked the Trevor Harris signing, was he can kind of be that authoritative voice. He can be the strict veteran who tells guys, listen, shape up, quit making excuses. They had a COVID game, a flu game, whatever. That's no excuse. You're professionals. Go out there and play football.
Well, it's so interesting because I was talking to Jeff Hamilton before the season started, and we had both been like, "Yeah, I mean, Trevor Harris, he's not a top 1 or 2 quarterback in the league," and I don't actually know that matters. Like, it is that leadership that he brings, and that sort of just having been there before, knows what it takes. And to be honest, on his day, I think he is an elite quarterback. I think generally he falls sort of somewhere between the 3rd and 5th best player in the league, or a quarterback in the league. But I imagine, and I don't want this to be a dumping on Cody Fajardo, like that's not what I'm trying to do. But like, there were times when, and I was contrasting it with Bo being benched and Bo saying all the right things, with being like, Cody, why are you saying this? And I imagine that just having a pro, like a pro's pro, like Trevor Harris, who can come in, talk to the younger guys, but also just put his head down and do the work and lead by example, has got to be just a huge change.
Yeah, I think so. I think Cody will learn. That was his first time as a starting quarterback, and it was a lot of success early. He didn't have to kind of deal with a lot of the adversity, and when it came, he'll learn from that. I think he is still learning as a starting quarterback, and he admits he's getting better. But yeah, getting Trevor Harris was big. But when you look at the quarterbacks in the league right now, I put him more in that 3-2 range when I look at this current start of the season. Zach Collaros is number 1. Vernon Adams Jr., number 2, but we know in the past he's had some bad weeks when he's been a starter. So is he really number 2, or are we just kind of seeing the best of Vernon Adams Jr.? And then Trevor Harris might be number 3 right now.
Yeah, I don't know that I have anyone ranked above him. I mean, like, let Chad Kelly do it for 12 weeks and we'll talk.
Yes.
But like, and I think Jake was actually much better against Ottawa, but it was Ottawa. I mean, yeah, no, I have all the respect in the world for Trevor Harris, and I do, honestly. I think that Riders team, now that it has calmed down and it feels just a little like I'm looking at them and there's just no way that I'm ruling them out. If they can keep him standing, and as you said, there's always more things that go into sacks. I mean, I'll just to tell a story. There was a quarterback who took over very briefly for the Stampeders and was getting sacked constantly. And I wrote a story blaming the O-line, and I had Derek Dennis pull me aside and be like, dude, the quarterback, he doesn't move. Like, we can't do anything. He just stands still in the pocket. And he's like, he doesn't manipulate the pocket at all. Doesn't like pick up. He's like, there's nothing we can do about these sacks. And so there is more to it. And if there's one thing I know about Trevor Harris, is that he knows how to, stay in games, which implies he doesn't get hit much.
Yeah, that's how I felt last year talking to the O-line and the offensive line coach, was that they were pointing out, like, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. Yeah, does the O-line get the microscope on it? But the running backs have to block well. The receivers have to do their thing. The quarterback. And so we've already seen it through the first 2 weeks of Trevor Harris here. He steps up into the pocket. He kind of lets it form. He doesn't look to break out of it like some other quarterbacks do, who are run first quarterbacks, right? They can do a lot of damage with their legs. Trevor Harris has proven to be a little bit more mobile than I expected him to be. He's had some good runs these first 2 weeks, but he's not looking to run usually. He just steps up, kind of lets the pocket develop a little bit more. And we're already seeing it with the fact that there are less sacks. It looks like he is getting more time there. And so we'll see if that continues for the full season, because last year, when the offensive line depth started to get tested, when Dan Clark went down, that really signaled kind of the start of all the struggles, because I think they gave up 0 sacks in week 1 last year. And then it all just started to go downhill when he left. So depth is a key issue.
Well, but I mean, that's the thing, right? Is that the Stampeders saw it in 2015. It's been a long time, but like, no team has that much O-line depth, right? Like O-line injuries are devastating to every team, and it's not entirely fair to, and there's nothing I love more than, as you know, trolling Saskatchewan and Winnipeg just a little bit. And I have made fun of it, but I mean, look, if you have O-linemen go down, like the NFL teams don't have enough offensive linemen. They let alone CFL teams. So it's tough. And yeah, I do think no one had any sympathy because it's the Riders, and because of, to be honest, like I don't, let's not talk about them, but the Marino stuff last year left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth. But yeah, I don't think it was entirely fair to just say, oh, the O-line sucks. That's the point.
Yeah.
Can I just move on? What a weird, I think Edmonton might be the worst team in the league. I think Winnipeg is definitely the best team in the league. So trying to evaluate these Riders based on 2 games feels impossible. It's I feel like they probably should have beaten the Elks by more. And I feel, to be perfectly honest with you, they did not deserve to lose to the Bombers by the scoreline that they did. And that through 3 quarters, that game, I don't know if it could have gone either way, but it was awfully close. And then the Janarian Grant touchdown kind of breaks them. But like, what did you take away from those two games ultimately?
I think this is still a team that's kind of figuring itself out. There was a ton of new weapons on offense. Like pretty much the entire offense was revamped in this single off season. That defense, like you said, what do you make of this defense? Because they looked good against Edmonton. All of a sudden, they couldn't stop anything Winnipeg was doing. So where are they really? Are they elite, or are they just really good against some bad teams?
Well, and I mean, that's the thing. Like, and I'm not, again, I actually think these Riders are better than I was giving them credit for before, but it's like, well, they looked good against Edmonton and then Edmonton got shut out the next week. So it's like, how much can you take from that? And it's the same thing I'm dealing with the Stampeders and the Red Blacks game. I'm like, well, your offense looked pretty good, but I don't know that the Red Blacks are actually any good at all. So it might not have that much value.
I think it's too early with a lot of these teams because outside of Winnipeg, who looks far and away the best, but Winnipeg's the most consistent team. They didn't have a lot of roster changeover. They had pretty much the same group out. A lot of franchises this offseason went through tons of changes, seismic changes out in Calgary, a brand new franchise quarterback. Edmonton, they finally give Taylor Cornelius the ball as the guy, and can he really handle it? Saskatchewan, a ton of changes on offense. So I think early right now, it's tough to gauge what this team is going to be by week 8 because it's a lot of moving parts. A lot of teams are dealing with moving parts, which is why Winnipeg might be the best team far and away for the first half of this season. But by the second half, if some of these teams figure it out, it might be closer, which is what we saw the Riders kind of do for 3 quarters, was keep it close with Winnipeg.
Yeah, and they did keep it close. And that's the thing. Like the issue with Winnipeg at this point is exactly what you're saying. These guys have been playing together. They all know the system. They are ahead of the rest of the teams just going into the season. That takes nothing away from what they are or what they're accomplishing. Yeah. But they have a natural chemistry. I mean, what they brought back Kenny Lawler. Well, he also knows the system, like and isn't playing. But so I do think that gap will presumably start to close a little bit. But I mean, I thought, and like I largely focused on Trevor Harris because I wanted to see him, but I thought that he dealt with Winnipeg pretty well. I had no issues there. And the problem with the Bombers is that they can hurt you anywhere. And ultimately it was special teams that sort of put the nail in the coffin for the Riders. But it's like you're saying, I got to give them credit. You hang with them for basically 3.5 quarters. That's better than most teams do against the Bombers in the first 6-7 weeks of the season.
Exactly. And that's why the Riders do deserve some credit, even though ultimately it's an 18-point loss. You kind of have to start seeing improvements. You can't keep losing double digits to the Bombers. That was the 8th straight loss to Winnipeg for the Riders in the regular season or playoffs. The fans are sick and tired of losing to the Bombers.
And there's no fan base in the league that is more like vocal about beating you than the Bombers.
Yeah, exactly. They let you know.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I find Riders fans can be really annoying when they lose. Bombers fans are really annoying when they win. It's a different thing.
Yeah, but like you said, give Trevor Harris credit. I don't know how many quarterbacks are going to throw for over 400 yards against this Bombers defense. And there was no run game. It was essentially the Trevor Harris show who needed to step up. They hit deep balls. He was very efficient, like we know Trevor Harris can be. It's just, what do you do when your defense isn't able to stop the Bombers? The Janarian Grant goes off for a touchdown, which really was the final nail in the Riders' coffin in that game. And so also the thing with Winnipeg this year is, what is that defense? They are giving up a lot of points this year, which I didn't expect. I thought the defense was going to be another strength, but it's looking like the offense might be the best thing about this Bombers team, at least early.
That's terrifying, isn't it?
Yeah, that's wild.
Because the defense is going to lock in. Like at some point, the defense is going to lock in. But I mean, we've seen scoring up around the league, which ultimately, like, I'm never gonna complain about. Yeah, looking at the Riders, I'll be honest with you. I looked at their injury report yesterday, and I was like, okay, Nick Marshall out, Derek Moncrief out. It was a long injury report. It looks a little bit better today. Like, it was that sort of a day one of the practice week, giving some guys a little extra day.
I mean, a little better, but they were still without a bunch of starters along the defensive side of the ball and offensive side of the ball as well today. Anthony Lanier II, we haven't seen him out this week on day 2. Roland Milligan, another great defensive player. Didn't see him today. Jaden Dahlke, another kind of emerging star. He wasn't out there for the 2nd straight day. So how serious are these injuries? We kind of have to find out. And then there's the Canadian depth, which the Riders are going to be tested this week, it looks like. Jawan Breskison's out. Kean Schaefer-Baker's already out. Albert Awachi. Jaden Dahlke's a good Canadian. Like they are missing a lot of Canadians already. They went out and signed 2 today actually to kind of help with that. So we'll see what they can do there. But for Rider fans, there is some good news. Both Nick Marshall and Derek Moncrief have both practiced both days so far, so they seem to be on the right trajectory to playing, and that's important, especially for Moncrief, who hasn't played yet this year. He was dealing with a shoulder injury all off season. If he comes back, that's a huge veteran presence for them, and he was their only All-Star, West Division All-Star last year. So he brings a big thing to that Riders defense.
And your linebackers matter against a team like Calgary that can run the ball, right? Like if there's one thing we know Calgary can do, it's run it. So yeah, I was a little bit wrong there. I didn't necessarily I'll be honest with you, I opened the injury report as you were talking your last answer, and I was like, oh, Marshall and Moncrief are back. This isn't so bad. And now you're like, and then I actually looked at it as you went, and I was, okay, they're banged up.
Yeah.
I mean, the Stamps aren't they're in better shape than this, but I mean, as you noted last week, Kadeem Carey is out, although Diedrich Mills is a good backup. But I mean, Reggie Bagleton hasn't been practicing this week. Malik Henry missed day one. There's Sam tight as well, but it's nothing compared to this. What do you like? I mean, I don't know how much you've watched Calgary. I am of the opinion that as far as late June games go, partially because the Stamps have the Bombers next, but like the Stamps at 1-1 cannot really afford to lose this game because they'll be 1-3. Like if they can't beat the Riders, they're not going to beat the Bombers. Does it feel like it has those same stakes at this point for the Riders?
Kinda. I think so, because this West Division, I think we all expect to be tight. It's going to be the Bombers at number 1. You maybe put BC 2, but that third spot and fourth, maybe for a crossover, every win is going to matter, which is why this is a huge game for both teams, even though it is early. I do think there's a little bit more pressure on Calgary, just because Jake Mayer, like he got better in the second game, sure, but that first game did not instill a lot of confidence in people. Can he put together some more good performances? But they moved on from Bo Levi Mitchell to go to Jake Mayer. The Riders brought Trevor Harris in with a whole new receiving group, a whole new, essentially almost all new offensive line. If the Riders offense isn't clicking, you kind of have that, well, there's a whole bunch of new spaces. Jake Mayer was there. That's why I think there's pressure on Calgary to maybe get this early win more, to kind of put those concerns around Jake Mayer to rest, because Trevor Harris just went through for 400 yards against the Bombers. He bought a little bit of like, okay, if this offense can figure it out, who knows who they can beat down the stretch.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, I do think that, I mean, there was that offensive pass interference call on against Malik Henry that I thought was absolutely ridiculous against the Red Blacks, where had that call not been made, Jake would have thrown for 400 yards. So like, I do like the bounce back, but as you said, I mean, week 1 was incredibly uninspiring. I do very quickly want to thank again, Fraser and Fig, who are our sponsor, and our guests are brought to you by them. They do these honestly amazing cheese and charcuterie boxes. I said this earlier, but if you're having a picnic, going on a date or whatever, check them out. They're here in Marteloup. They've got ready to go cheese and charcuterie boxes. They're curated with all local and artisanal ingredients. There's 4 sizes. So honestly, like, it can be any occasion. A small little, a picnic with the love of your life, or, presumably a big party. All boxes come with meat, cheese, dried fruit, fresh fruit, nuts, olives, pickles, carrots. It's amazing. I've got to not hit the desk as I do that, because it actually makes the mic shake. So I apologize for anyone listening. But yeah, that's it, guys. I think we're going to wrap here. Thank you to Alex Singleton. That was awesome. Thank you to Britton Gray. That was equally awesome. And thank you guys for listening. Please like and subscribe. We're the Live from the 55 podcast here on the Nation Network, brought to you by Fraser and Fig. And honestly, guys, your support's incredible. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk Canadian football. So thank you very much, and have a great weekend. Enjoy the games.